It's a true story. Bedtime should have been a happy moment for a tired child. For me, it was nothing short of a nightmare. While some kids complain about going to bed without watching TV or playing games, the night was an absolute terror for me. It still lingers in the corners of my mind. As someone who has learned physics, I can't exactly explain what happened to me. But I can say for sure that I felt pure fear. It was the greatest fear I had ever felt in my life. Nothing could compare to it. Now, I'll tell you everything I experienced from start to finish. I don't exactly remember when it started, but I think my fear of falling asleep began when I got my own room. I was 6 years old at the time. And until then, I had shared a room with my older brother. He, being 8 years older, wanted his own room, leaving me with the one at the back of the house. It was a small, cramped room with just enough space for a bed and a few small drawers. I didn't complain because even at that age, I knew we didn't have a large house. My family loved me, and I was having a wonderful childhood. My brother got a new bed. I, on the other hand, slept in the bunk bed we used to share. Although I was a bit afraid of sleeping alone, the idea of sleeping on the top bunk excited me. From the first night, a strange unease crept from the recesses of my memory. I sat up in bed and looked at my toys scattered on the green rug below. As I looked at my toys, my eyes shifted to the bunk below. It felt like something was trying to escape my sight. When I realized there was nothing below the bunk, I pulled the blanket over me and fell asleep, reassured by the sound of my dad watching TV downstairs. It takes a few seconds to understand what woke you up when something moves in the silence of a deep sleep. Everything becomes clear when the fog of sleep lifts. Something was moving, there was no doubt about it. At first, I couldn't understand what was happening. Everything was almost pitch dark. Immediately, two thoughts crossed my mind. First, my family was in their beds because there was no sound or light. My second thought turned into a sound. The sound that woke me up. As the last remnants of sleep vanished from my mind, the sound became recognizable. The bed below me creaked. It was as if someone was looking for a comfortable position. Could the sound be something I imagined, or was my cat trying to sleep in the lower bunk? At that moment, I looked at my door, and it was closed. Maybe my mom opened the door to check on me, and my cat came in. Yes, that must be it. I turned my face to the wall and tried to sleep. The moment I turned, the sound below stopped. I think I had disturbed my cat. But I quickly realized that the visitor below was more cunning than my cat. The thing below started spinning in bed like crazy, as if someone was having a fit of anger. Fear captured me. My eyes opened in fear, and tears began to flow. I cried, like any small child would. I called for my mom. There was movement at the other end of the house. After yelling, the thing below went berserk, shaking the bed as if an earthquake were happening. Instead of going downstairs, I chose to stay in my bed. Waiting for them felt like an eternity. The door finally opened. By then, the lower bunk was completely empty. While I was crying, my mom tried to calm me down. Due to fear, I couldn't tell her why I was scared. There was a feeling inside me that if I talked about it, it would come back. My mom lay on the lower bunk and said she would stay there until morning. But I could hardly sleep that night. The next morning, I wanted to go anywhere but that room. It was a Saturday morning. I was playing in the yard with my friends. There were many bushes and tall trees in the yard, so we felt like we were having an adventure on an exotic island. While playing with my friends, my eyes drifted to the window of my room. It felt like it was watching me in the mornings. Being alone at night filled me with nervousness and gave me nightmares. It might sound strange, but I didn't object when they brought me back to the room. I had no evidence anyway. I climbed to my bunk on the upper floor and lay down. As I lay still in bed at night, my heart suddenly raced. The creaking sounds from below started again. This time, a thought began to circulate in my mind: ghost. Shortly after, the creaking sounds below gave way to the sound of breathing. I could imagine the rise and fall of its chest. The house became silent again. The rhythmic breathing continued. I wanted it to leave. I wanted it to leave me alone. I lay there quietly. What did it want? Later, something truly frightening happened. It moved. It was different from its previous movements. It was like an animal. Undoubtedly so. I felt it sit up in bed. There were only a few boards separating us. Its breathing had intensified. I was lying there. Tears filled my eyes. My throat started to burn. There was no way to describe this fear. I never thought such a fear existed. I wondered what it looked like. I made a great effort to ensure it didn't realize I was awake. It started touching the board that separated our beds, then, with great force, it hit the board. I started crying. My mom came again and hugged me. She asked what happened. I said the same thing again. Nightmare. These strange events continued for weeks. Every night, I would wake up to the creaking of the bed shaking wildly, and it would stop when my mom came. Every evening, my mom would sleep downstairs, unaware of what was happening. Most nights, I would pretend to be sick and stay with my family. I didn't want to be alone with that thing. For some reason, it never showed up when my mom was around. The same could be said for my dad, but waking him up was very difficult. A few months later, I had grown accustomed to my nightly visitor. Don't think of it as a friendship, I had just accepted its presence. The days were about to get even harder. My grandfather was sick. He was going to die. My mom started staying with him. On that day, I rushed home and put all my belongings on the lower bed. I didn't want it to come there. When it got dark, I lay in my bed, knowing my mom wasn't home. I didn't know what to do. My only plan was to get the cross from the jewelry box. Even though my family wasn't that religious, I believed in God and knew He would protect me. Clutching the cross under my blanket, I hoped to stay awake until morning. Unfortunately, this night was the most terrifying. I woke up slowly. The room was dark. No sound. No breathing, no creaking, nothing. It stood there silently. Lifeless but not empty. The night visitor wasn't in the lower bed. It was in my bed. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. I stayed still. If I couldn't scream, it shouldn't know I was awake. I couldn't see it, but I felt it. It was standing at the foot of my bed. I could feel its weight. I would never forget the weight I felt. If it were summer, there might have been some light. But in winter, it was pitch black. I lay there. Sometimes, fear takes you over. Pure fear. I had to get out of bed. At that moment, I remembered the cross in my hand. But it was gone. Either it fell, or, I didn't want to think about it, it was taken from my hand. Without the cross, all hope was gone. Even at that age, I knew about death and was afraid. If I stayed in bed, I would die. I had to escape. But what if it was faster than me? Could I get down without disturbing it? When I tried to sit up, strange thoughts came to mind. When I realized it wasn't moving, what if it was asleep? Maybe it was playing a game with me. Like a predator catching its prey, it was waiting for me to wake up. I tried to breathe as slowly as possible. With all my courage, I began to lift the blanket off me slowly. At that moment, my hand hit it. Tremors ran through me with fear. It didn't do anything. It was like dead. I wanted to touch its face. I had been curious about it for so long. My God, it moved, and it grabbed me. Tears filled my eyes. I wanted to cry. But I couldn't. When I looked at the wall, I saw it wasn't on me, it was on the wall like a spider. Suddenly, it tightened its grip on me even more. It was as if it understood I was trying to escape. It began pulling me towards the wall. I fought for my life. I tried to break free, but it was too strong for me. I started crying. Screaming. But no one came. I understood why it was trying to take me immediately. The sunlight was coming. It quickly pulled me to its chest. I felt its breath. It was icy cold. As the sun rose, the room filled with light. It clawed into my neck and took my life. I woke up seeing my dad preparing breakfast for me. I had escaped from the most terrifying night of my life. Weeks passed without any incident. We turned the bed around and put it on the opposite side. We placed furniture where the old bunk used to be. One night, I woke up to strange noises. The items where the bunk used to be were shaking like crazy, and there was a strange rumbling from the wall. I have never told this story to anyone. Even today, I can't sleep with my bed against the wall. You may call it imagination, but I can only say this to you: the next year, they gave me a new room, and my parents turned that place into their bedroom. They lasted 10 days. On the 11th day, we moved out. If you liked the story, don't forget to press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more. Thanks for listening.